Hi everyone. So just real quick before we get into the topic, I just want to congratulate Ashley Danny 11 for winning the $5 Amazon gift card giveaway. Thank you so much for entering, and I hope you can put the money towards something you've been wanting to get. So today we're going to be talking about recovering from a financial setback. So, all of us have financial setbacks at some point in our life. They can have a varying degree of impact to your financial situation. And the thing is that no matter the severity of the setback, it can definitely affect our momentum to keep moving forward. And when you're working so hard to make progress on financial goals, it really hurts when things go wrong and they take away from what could be anything from weeks to years of progress. So no matter how large of a financial setback you experience, it's so important not to let that make you want to give up. Even if you're hit really hard by the setback, you're never going to be better off by giving up. Like, no matter what you do to move forward, you're always going to be better off than just throwing your hands up and saying, I just can't do this, it doesn't work, these horrible things always happen, and I can never, make the progress I want. You're always going to do better by continuing to move ahead and try than to just kind of throw your hands up and do nothing. And the worse that the situation is, the more important it's going to be to stay focused and get yourself back on track. And back on track does not necessarily mean what it was before. Depending on how bad the situation is, it's probably not going to be back on track to where you were before. But it's always going to be much better than what you'll get if you just give up out of frustration. So if you have something happen that sets you back financially, it's really important to just take some time to get your thoughts together. Because often if you have a significant financial setback, your initial reaction is going to be driven by emotion. Because it's very discouraging when you work so hard to get ahead and something happens to wipe out so much of your progress. But unfortunately, as we all know, most of us are going to have some of these financial setbacks over the course of our life. And if we haven't yet, or if we have already, we know, and we don't want more to happen, but they probably will at some point. But the thing is, if you react immediately when you're still very emotional about the situation, you might not make the best decision. So you really want to just give yourself like a little time to just kind of settle down and really think about the situation. And also think about, what occurred. Like, was this caused by actions that you took? Was it caused by lack of action? If you feel like it's something that you could have prevented, of course you have to take responsibility for that. But focus on what you can do differently going forward. It's not worth wasting time on wishing you had done things differently. It's not possible to go back, so just set yourself up for success by changing things going forward. If it's something that you had no control over, that can be even harder sometimes too. Maybe if it's like a medical event or a car accident that you didn't cause, and you can kind of get into that, like, oh, this isn't fair, and why did this have to happen? And of course there's going to be some of that, because we all have those feelings when those things happen. But you don't want to dwell on that, the fact that you had an unfortunate situation, and let it put you in a negative mindset that's going to stop you from moving forward on your goals that you were working so hard on. So one tip to kind of help you get through a financial setback, and this is kind of overall with the whole making progress on your financial goals, even just in general, is practicing gratitude. And I've talked about this before because it really is important. Just reminding yourself of all of the things that you do have to be grateful for. If you have a place to live, vehicle for transportation, clothes to wear, food to eat, nature to enjoy, family, friends, and I'm sure so many more things that you can think of, and you just consider all those things that you have to be grateful for, it can really help put you in a good mindset to be positive about turning your situation around. And it often also helps you to avoid spending money that you don't have, because when you appreciate all the things that you have, you're not as likely to feel the need to purchase new things. And especially in a time when you had like one of those really bad financial setbacks. Sometimes people will just be like, you know what, I don't care. I'm going out. I'm eating dinner out at this great restaurant. I'm buying myself a new outfit, and they'll just kind of like reject everything that they've been working on because they feel like, why bother? These things are just going to happen and I'm never going to get ahead. And then they make things much worse. So really just try and like get your thoughts together, think of all the things you have to be grateful for, and just set yourself up to move forward and get back to your new on track of what you want to accomplish. Most likely you're definitely going to have to reestablish your budget and your financial goals. And, when we've been following a plan for some period of time and something happens to completely throw us off the plan, it can be really hard to let go. Especially, if you've been tweaking and tracking and really doing everything you can to stay on track, you don't want to have to scrap it. We can become really attached to those plans and we feel like we failed if we don't see them all the way through. But if something unforeseen happens that makes your current plan unachievable, it's not that you failed, you just had an unfortunate situation happen, which happens in life. How you will probably fail is if you try to hang on to an unrealistic plan that you'll never be able to stick to. So unless you had a relatively minor setback, it's very difficult to catch up and get back on track with your old plan. It can be discouraging to constantly be in catch-up mode where you're not like achieving goals. You're just like, okay, I'm this far away from being back to where I was before. Or, not that maybe you want to kind of look at that a little bit, like to encourage yourself, like, oh, well, I'm only this far off of where I was. But you don't want to be in a constant catch-up mode where you're trying to recover. Say if you went way over budget on a certain line item because of something that happened, and you're just constantly trying to make that up, and maybe you don't have room in your budget to make that up. So instead of saying, okay, well, this is my new budget, and saying, hey, this is great, I'm on track, it's not a good feeling if every week you're like, okay, I have, this much more to make up and this much more to make up. It's just kind of discouraging being in like that makeup mode rather than kind of like the catch up mode, rather than kind of being in moving forward and hitting your current goals. So instead of trying to play catch up, it's really important to just reestablish a new budget based on where you're at today. Whatever happened. Today's today. This is your new situation, and you want to just say, okay, this is where I'm at, and these are my new goals. And you want to make sure that you're being realistic about what can be done. It's important to set realistic expectations for your revised financial plan. Say it took you 2 years to fully fund your emergency fund. You're not likely going to be able to rebuild it in 6 months if the situation that happened to you caused the fund to be depleted. So you want to be realistic and set achievable goals, because if you set goals that you cannot even possibly accomplish, it's just going to be discouraging. You're not going to be able to keep up, and more likely than not, it's going to take time to recover the ground that you lost. So you just kind of have to accept that and set up a plan that you can likely achieve. And I'm not saying to not push harder and maybe exceed that plan, and don't make your plan so easy that it's just like you don't even have to put any effort into it. But you want to put something together that's possible. And that you can maybe exceed on. You don't want to have this expectation that you're going to be right back where you started off, if you've been working on something for years. Like I said, if it's a small setback, then yeah, maybe you can. But if you had something that really, like I said, wiped out your emergency fund, or you had to go into debt because you had a medical event and you had just paid off all your debt and now you have this new debt, whatever the situation is, think about how long it took you to get to where you are, and maybe consider that in setting up your plan, and don't have unrealistic expectations of getting back to where you were before. Come up with a new goal and work on that. And take small steps if you need to. Depending on how large of a hurdle you need to recover from, you might need to take it slow. It's better to be making small steps moving forward than just getting stuck in a place where you're making no progress. So figure out where you can make a small impact. Is it focusing on rebuilding your emergency fund a little bit at a time? Maybe you take a little bit of money, here and there and just stick it over into your emergency fund. Is it getting your spending back on track? Maybe just focus on that. Is it cooking more at home? Maybe sometimes when bad things happen, we can tend to not always want to just do regular life things like cook dinner and, oh, I don't even feel like it. I'm just so drained from this. Let's just order out. Maybe you can just kind of focus on that and say, okay, the one progress I'm going to make right now is just making sure we cook from home and we're not spending a lot on eating out. Whatever it is, just making small little steps. If you need to, like if you feel like it's just kind of overwhelming and you're at a point where you need to just kind of step back and just take little tiny steps to start moving yourself forward. Because it's always okay to start small, and small wins will give you encouragement to keep moving forward. And then before you know it, you'll be more wanting to like make those goals bigger and make more progress. So really, the most important thing of all of this is really to just move forward from where you're at now, whatever that means, whatever is realistic. You don't want to let a financial setback happen and just kind of throw your hands up, because you'll never be better off by doing that. Just doing something and giving yourself that momentum to keep going will encourage you to see that you're making progress again. And, like I said, you'll always be better off. You're always going to be better off putting something aside or paying off some debt or tracking your expenses than if you do nothing. So that's all I have to say about this today. I hope maybe some of this is helpful to you. And if any of you are going through a difficult financial situation, I just want to encourage you to just do whatever you can, little steps at a time, to get yourself out of it. Just some reminders, you can email me with any questions or suggestions at lolasfrugallife@gmail.com. You can follow me on Instagram and Facebook at lolasfrugallife. You can find a blog post for each episode on my website at lolasfrugallife.com. And you can also join our private listeners group on Facebook at facebook.com/groups/lolasfrugallife. And if you enjoy the show, please make sure to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or wherever you listen from. And I would love it if you would screenshot the show and tag me on Instagram. Also, if you could take a couple of seconds to rate and review the podcast, I would really, really appreciate that. It would make my day. It's really helpful, and it's just really nice for me to get feedback from you. So if you have a moment, if you wouldn't mind just doing that, I would really appreciate it. So that's it for today. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you have a really awesome day.